Janet, how much liberty do I have here? Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You still on for tomorrow for the yeah, okay. Let me just give you an update on Janet. That's Janet Hazelton. Wave, Janet, because there's visitors here. Yeah. Janet had cancer a couple of years ago and went through a process of things and had been cancer-free for about a year. And went back to the doctor several weeks ago, and cancer had come back in her bladder. She had a procedure last week where the doctor grabbed that and a couple other things and put some chemo, and through a series of more tests have discovered that what they need to do is something very radical involving totally taking her bladder out, rebuilding something in its place, some other organs, so that those are not taken as well and with cancer. And so I want you to keep abreast of that. So we're all, we're relearning how to be the church. So for years we've gone to church, and now we're learning to be the church. And there's a huge difference. There really is. Going to church is a piece of cake. We can pretend and dress up and, oh, how you doing? I'm fine, I'm fine. But when we start being the church, when we literally be the church, it means we lay our lives down for each other. And so Janet's going to have needs. I'm not talking financially, although there probably is. Those things, they don't give those surgeries away. I'm playing. We're trying to laugh. We've cried a little bit, and we're trying to laugh when we can. But there are going to be days when she's going to need me and you to walk with her through some pretty tough times. There are days I need you to walk with me. And we have to learn how to be that with each other. If you're visiting here, what we've been talking about some, not a whole lot, but it just remind ourselves that it's okay not to be okay. And some of us today are not okay, and that's okay. It's not okay to stay not okay. Say that back to me, Will. Come on, buddy.
That's a mouthful.
What? You can't stay there, but if you're there, that's okay. And we're going to love you, and nobody's going to criticize or condemn, I hope. We're going to talk about that today. Today's sermon may not be one of your favorite. Seriously, because it's going to get a little close to home. But I'm asking you now to go ahead and say yes right now to what's ahead, okay? Say yes to what's coming in the next few minutes. Some of you are going, few minutes, you talk longer. Here's what I heard. I heard this last night at the gym. I was at a gym enjoying myself, minding my own business, and a dear, dear friend said to me, let me tell you what Brooks said at the lock-in the other night. Okay. Well, Brooks has this little friend, you know, that accepted Christ, and he said, hey, you want to go to church on Wednesday night? He goes, yeah. And she said, well, why not on Sunday? Because my dad talks too long. I'm not going to invite him. What? You threw me under the bus, buddy. So, just for that, no, I'm playing. Seriously, here's what we're talking about today. We've been talking about the heart of David, and we've been going for months, and it's a revelation to me. It's been exciting because behind the heart of David is the heart of God. And I've seen God in just a really neat way. My sleeve is wet. That's why I keep playing. Ty is so short, and I'm not so tall. But between here, and the water's down there, when I went down, it's like, and I had my sleeve rolled up like this, and I went up to my armpit without realizing it. And now I'm just soaking wet on my left side. Anyway, so a couple of weeks ago we ran across this amazing verse in 2 Samuel that talks about that God devises ways to draw us back to Him out of banishment. I mean, that verse is just mind-boggling. And so we looked at that 2 weeks ago, and it kind of led us to the 15th chapter of Luke, which talks about, remember, the lost sheep that a sheep wandered away and got lost, and the shepherd left the 99 to go find that one, and we saw that's the heart of God. And we saw the lady who lost her one out of her 10 coins, and she lit a lamp and swept the house, and she went looking, and she found it, and she invited everybody she knew, and come celebrate with me. And then we talked about the lost son. We call it the prodigal son. What we're going to look at today is there was another boy in the story, and here's the deal. We're going to find out that he was more prodigal than his little brother. And so we're going to talk today about the spirit of the elder son, which for a whole lot of us in this room is going to get very close to home. And so I'm just going to ask you now to go, okay, go ahead and be over being mad at me. It's going to be okay. But it's really not me that you have to deal with. You got to deal with the Father. And so you have to say now, okay, God, I have a deal here. I need you to root this out of my life because I have this self-dependent, self-indulgent, this selfish thing that I think because I have loved you that you owe me something and that I deserve this and that. I mean, we're going to see this thing as we unpack this. And I've been slammed some, and so I didn't want to have all that fun by myself, so you could be slammed. So if you have your Bible, turn to Luke chapter 15. We watch very little TV at our house. I'm hooked on one show, and I almost really hate to tell you what it is because you're going to watch it and you're going to go, the pastor watches that? I'll just tell you. No, that's you, Eric. You just incriminated yourself. Eric watches Desperate Housewives. Y'all just heard him. So, that was not me. That was Janet. So, that was Joseph. I watch Fox News, I watch a little Sports Center, and Criminal Minds. I don't know what it is about that show, but so today, on this show, The Criminal Minds, what they do is they take this unsub and they do a profile. And so I'm going to profile the elder son today, okay? So let's look at that together. Luke chapter 15, starting in verse 25. Okay, remember now the younger son, the parable of the younger son, they got him, he came home, remember, and the daddy ran to meet him and he put on his robe and the ring, and then they took the fatted calf and they had this party, all right? So the party's going on, and then in verse 25, meanwhile, okay, the party's happening, the son is home, the dad's ecstatic. There's just this celebration going on. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. Whoop, first clue. First clue. The older son, although he's a son, was not in the house. He was not at home. And we're going to unpack that. When he came near the house, so even that little phrase, when he came near the house, you can hear this thing in there about he coming near. He was even uncomfortable being near the house. Okay? When he came near, he heard music and dancing, and so he called his daddy. No. He called one of the servants. Even that little phrase shows, it adds to the profile of his relationship with the Father. Okay? So he called one of the servants and said, "What's going on?" And the servant responded, "Oh, your brother has come home, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound." The older brother was ecstatic with joy. No. The older brother was angry. Are you kidding? Your little brother is home. He's mad. He's angry and refused to go in. So his father, which is just astounding to me. I mean, this is one of those deals just on a little personal level. My fatherhood doesn't look so swift compared to this one. His father went out and pleaded with him. I don't think that's what I would have done. Oh, you want to be that way? Okay. But the boy answered to his father, "Look, after all these years I've been slaving for you," oh, another little addition to the profile, "and never disobeyed your orders, but you never never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, oh, you mean your brother? He can't even call him his brother. When this son of yours who squandered your property with prostitutes, where was that ever even mentioned in Luke 15? It wasn't there. Okay, we're going to look at that. When he comes home, you killed a fatted calf. My son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. Okay, I'm not much of a point kind of preacher, and I don't do little cutesy things. But today I'm going to do this little profile that all begin with the letter A. Okay, so all of you note takers, this is a little easier day for you. Okay, so the first profile, the first thing we see is in the profile of this elder son is the A is absent. Okay, in verse 25 and 26, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, which just something about that sound. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants instead of his dad. So here's the deal. He's in the field. When he came near, so he called one of the servants, and then he said, "Your father." Okay, here's what I see here. See, the older son was always at work in the fields. He was happiest away from his father. He was still obedient, but he was happy somewhere else. He was at home, but not home. See, this self-righteous spirit, that's what we're talking about today. A self-righteousness. This self-righteous spirit is an isolating spirit. It isolates. His whole idea of joy is what happens away from Father. Is the elder son in any way a better son? Does he show a more of a spirit of a son, a child? Not one bit. He is a servant rather than a son. That's important. See, it's easier to work than invest in a relationship. Let me say that again. We can make it about church. We can make it about marriage. It's easier for me to get up, go to work. Here's my check. See, I'm providing. When Terry really does, I mean, we have to have provision, but she's desiring relationship. And it's easier for me to just go, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go. And there's not this intimate. That's kind of the picture here of what's going on. Nobody saw you, Gina. Okay. Oh man. So therefore the father is more a master to him than a father. See, that's how some of us are in our relationship with the Father, with the Heavenly Father. We have lived this life where we've worked more. I've got to do this, I've got to do this, and we've kept Him at a distance rather than invest ourselves in relationship. We've kept Him at a distance, and we work and we work. Even some of our old hymns in our hymnal, they're about toiling and working, and there's nothing wrong with those hymns, but this whole thing is like he is more of a master than a father. Okay, that's the spirit of the elder son. The son dislikes the restraints to which he is submitted at least as much as the prodigal who wouldn't submit to them. So it's this whole picture of the external versus the internal. I've got this external thing going on. I'm on this committee at church, and I do this, and I do this, and I give my tithe, and I do this, and yet what's scary is that on the outside it looks like everything's okay, but on the inside there's really a disconnect between a son and the father. It's so much easier to take care of the external, and we can all look like we got it together, and yet there's this thing missing, a relationship. Okay? See, here's the truth. The older son was as far away from his father's heart and spirit as the younger one was far from home. he had sunk into this bondage from which it was harder to redeem him even than it was from the younger son. Okay, so the second A, this is kind of sounds silly. You'll see this in verse 29. After all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. So the A here is automatic. Another way of like autopilot. He's just locked into this routine. It's become habitual. It's this habit. It's like life done unconsciously. He just does it by rote. I've done this. I've gone to the field. I've done my job. I've done what I'm supposed to do. It's like he's on autopilot. Okay, let me chase a quick rabbit here. See, remember, he's the oldest child. I'm a middle child. Terry's an oldest child. So I know from watching Terry, from watching my oldest child, and it's so funny, those of you who don't know, who are visiting, we have 9. And so we only have like literally one oldest child, and yet Garrison is like an oldest child because he comes after some girls. And so he's like an oldest child again. And Hannah is like an oldest child because she followed 3 boys. So she's really not like the baby. She's like the oldest of the next set. Does that make sense? And so I mean, Will, come on, buddy. Wow. I could say something about you being from Dixon, but I won't. All right. Okay. I'm playing. I love what one of Janet's boys, can I tell that? One of Janet's boys, Janet, after the day she got the news about how severe things are going to get surgery-wise, she circled the wagons and got the kids, and she was telling the boys, and after crying and stuff, one of the boys says, "Mama, it's going to be okay because you're tough. You're from Dixon. You're not like those Brentwood women." Oh my goodness. All right. Oh, out of the mouth of babes. All right. See, here's my point. The oldest children want to be model children. They do. They want to please. They don't want to be a disappointment to their parents. So they work. And they work hard. And they're obedient and they're dutiful. But here's the deal. Sometimes that starts to feel like a burden that was laid on their shoulders. Terry carries things. I'm not picking on her, but as an oldest child, she still carries things. She's been with her mom this week who had surgery, so she goes as the oldest child. I mean, there's still this deal. Although there's a beautiful relationship between her mom, there's this oldest child. And so that's kind of what I see here a little bit. I'm not trying to make like I'm, this PhD or whatever, that I'm, this child psychologist. But really, they serve. But serving as an oldest child sometimes can become slavery to them. He wasn't bad, he was faithful. But the deal was he was faithful, but he wasn't free. He had been obedient. He had never transgressed a command. But what's this? His life had no heights and it had no depths. It was just like this flatline thing going on. It had been even and calm, and life had become a habit. And the danger to a man of habit is that he becomes mechanical and doing his part steadily, but without the oil of gladness. Some of us in this building today, we have served God and walked with God a long time. We've served and we've served and we've been dutiful and we haven't walked in sin and we haven't done this. But the truth is that we've done it with this servile mentality, and we've done it and there's no joy or gladness in our life. And that's wrong. That's not the heart of the Father. How we ended up with what we have, I'm not sure how we totally got there. Because the heart of God is full of joy. And the joy of the Lord is our strength. Does that make sense? And so some of us have this spirit of an elder son where it's not the serving that's wrong. It's how we serve. We serve not out of love and I want to serve you because I love you. It's like out of this, like we're older children. I've got to please and I've got to grind and I've got to do this because that's my deal. And it's gotten on us and we've become slaves, even in church. Does that make sense? And I'll leave that alone. You cool, Will? Got it? All right. Okay. All right. So in one respect, even though he's less heinously guilty than his little brother, he's in greater danger because there's this risk here of this self-deception that's brutal. So he's a servant rather than a son. His father's much more than is much more a master to him than a father. He's not free, but he's servile. Okay, we'll move on. See, really there's two prodigals here, not one. Two men had wandered who lost their standing as sons by losing the spirit of being a son. The self-righteous older brother, even though he never left the house, really strayed farther away than the reckless prodigal did. Okay. The third A is angry. Look at verse 28. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. Look, all these years I've been slaving for you. I've never disobeyed, and yet you never gave me even a young goat. See, complaining starts to distort the truth. It starts changing your heart, and it leads to resentment. Complaining, whatever, it ends up being, you become resentful. And what happens to that is, resentment leads to an inner lostness. So his anger ends up being this inner lostness, bitterness, and it's damaging to his heart. We tend to think of lostness in terms of visible actions that we see. The younger son sinned in a way that we can identify that easily. It's obvious. It's a clear-cut misbehavior. But the lostness of the elder son is more difficult to identify. See, he did all the right things. Obedient, dutiful, law-abiding, hard-working, all that. People respected him. They admired him. Oh, he's a hard worker. Yeah. And so outwardly he was faultless. But when he was confronted with his father's joy at the return of his brother, I used to tell my young people when I was a youth minister, you can tell about a person, the true person, by what sloshes out when they get bumped. You know, it's like you can tell about what's in Janet Hazelton when she got bumped this week and I saw what sloshed out. And it was amazing. But for some of us, we get bumped and stuff that sloshes out of me sometimes is disgusting. And so here, the joy of his brother coming home, the elder son gets bumped. The self-righteous got bumped and now he's hacked. He's mad. He's angry. This dark power inside of him erupted. This darkness, this vile, disgusting thing. Even though he was a son, there are things inside of me, there are things inside of you that the right thing bumps us and it really reveals what's going on. That's why I said earlier today, say yes now. I mean, God's going to show you specific things. We need to deal with this. We need to deal with this. You see that? You can't hide that anymore. Let's get this out in the open and get it dealt with. So suddenly these things become glaringly visible, that he's resentful, he's proud, he's unkind, he's angry, he's selfish, and all of that had remained hidden and kind of growing underneath the surface. See, I wonder what does more damage, lust or resentment? I wonder what really does more damage, what the younger son dealt with or what the older son dealt with. There's so much resentment among the just and the righteous. There's so much resentment in this room today. And we don't want to talk about it. There's so much judgment and condemnation and prejudice among the saints of God. So much frozen anger among the people who are so concerned about avoiding sin. Now here's the deal. Joy and resentment cannot coexist. Got it? Joy and resentment cannot coexist in my life. One of the two have to go. The fourth A, antagonistic. Verse 30, he says, "But when this son of yours who squandered your property with prostitutes come home, you fill the fattened calf for him." Antagonistic means to act in opposition to, hostile, adversarial. See, he will not say, "my brother." He doesn't say, "my brother," this son of yours. That son has now become his enemy. How sad is this? That in the church, we turn against each other. It's unbelievable to me. This spirit of the elder son, how we turn on each other. Okay, let's go quickly. The next A. I'm going to put these next two kind of together. Okay, I broke them up just because I was having so much fun. But the fifth one is accusative, and the sixth one is auditing. Okay, and I'll show you what those two mean. They kind of go together. So he accuses his father of favoritism in verse 30. "When this son of yours who squandered your property comes home, you kill the fatted calf for him." He's your favorite. He shows favor, and he refuses to be a part of the party. How this exposes the gloomy Pharisaical spirit, which, you know what? Which we have passed for religion. We've passed this spirit of a Pharisee. Like, that's what a good Christian looks like. It doesn't. I mean, look at that. We're seeing the real heart of this kind of spirit. Okay, so he's angry. He's accusing his dad. He's never happy in his religion. Okay, the second thing, he devoured or squandered your property. So he's implying, there's this implication there of he's implying blame to the dad. He's kind of blaming the dad for giving the stuff to the younger son so that he could go sin. What? He's kind of blaming the dad for that, to give him the opportunity to go run riot. Okay, and then with prostitutes, with harlots. I don't know what your translation says. We'll stop at that one. It's this detail that's it's implied back in verse 13 when not long after that the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. Okay, it doesn't say that, but the older son takes that, wild living, and now just begins to just go down the list of what he's done. But it's out of place on his lips. Oh, see, the elder son, the Pharisaical spirit, this thing that we're talking about, loves to exaggerate and make known the sins of a younger brother. Gossip, how we talk about each other, and we say things like, "See, I told you that he deserves that." Well, you know what he was? What? Really? That's the spirit of the elder son, where these things come out of our mouth about each other in this room. God help us. Okay? This gossip and backbiting and throwing each other under the bus like Brooks did to me about my preaching. This bitter jealousy prompted that reproach. Okay, and then here's how I've combined these two, where I use the word auditing. It's this carefully examining, keeping records, reviewing secrets, comparing. See, out of my inner lostness, when I get this spirit of the elder son and this resentment and all this, and there's this inner lostness inside of me. Out of that inner lostness, I begin to judge. And I think my judgment of others gets me off the hook because it makes me feel better about myself. Stay with me here, okay? I don't want to lose you. We're almost through. Is there anything more delightful than judging someone else? there's something kind of self-satisfying about putting on the robe, getting behind the bench, picking up the gavel, and declaring, you're guilty. We stand next to other people and we boast, look, God, compared to them, I'm not so bad. I'm not so bad. But here's the problem, Will. That's not the problem. See, God doesn't compare us to them. They're not the standard. He is. See, we judge each other, and it's like, oh, I don't feel so bad. Look at her compared to me. I'm the older son. I've done all. We're sick. See, as long as I'm focusing on your weaknesses, I don't have to think about mine. But here's the deal. We aren't good enough to judge. Secondly, about that, we don't know enough to judge. We don't know enough about each other's past. We condemn a man for stumbling this morning. But we didn't see what happened to him yesterday. We didn't see the blows he took yesterday. We say something about a woman who limped into church today. But what we don't know is what she stubbed her toe on yesterday. We don't know enough to become judges of each other. Not only are we ignorant about yesterday, we're ignorant about tomorrow. Do we dare judge a book while chapters are unwritten? Really? And should we pass judgment on a painting while the brush is still in the artist's hand? I'm going to show you this one other thing and we're through. This is in Luke chapter 18, kind of this whole Pharisee thing. I want you to see this. Luke chapter 18, starting in verse 9. Just a few verses and we're done. To some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everybody else. They're talking about the Pharisees again. To some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everybody else, Jesus told this parable. 2 men went up to the temple to pray. One, a Pharisee, and the other, a tax collector. Kind of a younger brother, older brother. Tax collector, that was a bad thing, okay? It was like they were white trash, low life, whatever word you want to use. So don't get hung up on, oh, tax collector? You know, I mean, it's not a good thing, all right? So it's like the Pharisee, the Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, the self-appointed police of the law versus, you know, the mess up or whatever, all right? So these two guys go up. One's the Pharisee, the elder brother, the elder's a tax collector. And so the Pharisee stood up and praised. Okay, the NIV says prayed about himself. The RSV says he prayed with himself. Does somebody have a different one than that? He prayed to himself. Okay, watch this. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. God, I thank you that I am not like other men, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, kind of, you know, what the elder son was talking about, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. See, they only had to fast. If you fasted, you only had to do it once a week. And so he's like, I mean, I fast twice a week. And I give a tenth of all that I get. They were only required under the law to give a tenth of these certain kinds of things. So he's like, I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of everything that I get. I mean, he is so proud of himself. But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven. He beat his breast and said, "Oh God, have mercy on me, a sinner." Wow. Guess whose prayer got answered? Watch this. See, the Pharisee has two characteristics: self-righteousness and this depreciation of everybody else. Every word in this Pharisee's prayer is reeking with self. Even the expression when he prayed with himself, about himself, however it is, that's significant because it suggests that the prayer was less addressed to God than to himself. It wasn't a prayer to God. It was like tooting his own horn, his own praise. And so, so he begins with this formal intro, God, and then from that point on, it just goes downhill, and it's I, 4 times in the NIV. It says, God wants I 4 times, all right? The self-satisfied, the self-centered, the self-righteousness, the self-righteous have no need to ask for anything, so he didn't bring any petitions. He's not asking. He uses this conventional language, but his real meaning is to praise himself to God. See, he really didn't go to pray. He went to inform God how awesome he was. So God is named once, and all the rest is I. He had no longing for communion, no aspiration. He was not so much thankful for being righteous as for being alone in his goodness. And so he proudly recounts his fasting and tithing as if God should feel this, oh, wow, I'm indebted to you. Wow, you tithed twice? Oh, really? So the Pharisee condensed his contempt into this word. Remember, he said, I'm so glad I'm not like this tax collector. Jesus picks up on that this, okay? Watch this. He picks up on it in verse 14. I tell you that this man, this man that you were talking about, this man, rather than you, will go home justified before God. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted.